On Christmas Eve of 1945, the Sodder family's two-story home in Fayetteville, West Virginia, was filled with warmth and celebration. The children, excited and restless, had spent the day playing with their gifts and enjoying the rare holiday joy that came after a long, difficult year. George and Jenny Sodder, proud parents of 10, watched their children laugh and chatter as the night stretched on. The house smelled of pine, baked goods, and wood smoke, carrying the comfort of a family together. By midnight, the younger ones had grown tired. Jenny tucked them into their beds while the older children begged to stay awake just a little longer, their eyes bright with the glow of Christmas lights. At last, the family drifted into sleep, the house settling into quiet. Only a few lamps burned faintly, casting shadows against the wooden walls. Sometime after 1 a.m., Jenny awoke suddenly. A strange sound outside disturbed the stillness, a sharp crash, like something heavy hitting the roof. At first she dismissed it, but soon she noticed a faint smell of smoke. Rising quickly, she spotted orange light flickering in the hallway. Panic surged through her. The house was on fire. Within minutes, flames tore through the rooms, consuming the dry timber. George and Jenny rushed to wake the children, but chaos spread faster than their efforts. 4 of the children managed to escape with their parents, stumbling into the freezing night air. 5 others remained trapped upstairs, their cries swallowed by smoke and heat. George tried everything. He ran to fetch his ladder, but it had mysteriously vanished. He dashed to his trucks, hoping to climb onto them to reach the windows, but both vehicles refused to start. Neighbors gathered, but the phone line had already been cut. Helpless, they watched as fire devoured the home. By dawn, the Sodder house was nothing but ashes, and 5 children had vanished with it. When the flames finally died and the sun rose over the smoldering ruins, the family's grief deepened into confusion. Authorities arrived quickly and offered a simple explanation: the 5 missing children had perished in the blaze. It was the only conclusion that made sense on the surface. Yet, as neighbors helped sift through the remains of the Sodder home, something critical was missing. No bones, no skull fragments, no sign of human remains could be found in the ash. For a fire that destroyed everything, there should have been evidence, and for 5 young bodies, the absence of any trace was unthinkable. Jenny struggled with the official account. Refusing to accept the explanation, she conducted her own experiments. She burned chicken bones, beef bones, and pork bones in an outdoor fire. Each time, fragments remained. Experts she consulted explained that even in a house fire, bones do not simply vanish. Temperatures required to completely incinerate bone are far higher than a burning wooden structure could ever reach. Her doubts grew stronger with each test, and with each day she began to believe that her children had not died in the blaze at all. The official investigation, however, dismissed her concerns. Fire officials declared that the intense heat of the fire had reduced the children to ash, and the case was considered closed. But those closest to the family whispered otherwise. If the fire had truly consumed everything, why had household appliances, fragments of furniture, and sections of the foundation survived? The more George and Jenny examined the site, the clearer it became that something about the story did not add up. What began as unbearable loss soon turned into an even greater torment, the chilling possibility that their 5 children had not been lost to fire, but had disappeared without a trace. In the weeks leading up to the fire, strange and unsettling events began to circle the Sodder family, details that would later cast a long shadow of suspicion over what truly happened that Christmas night. George Sodder, known in the community for his outspoken opinions, often clashed with others about politics and his beliefs. Some recalled heated arguments, and it seemed he had made enemies. A few weeks before the fire, a man visited the Sodder home, trying to sell fire insurance. When George refused, the salesman warned darkly that his house would go up in smoke and his children would be destroyed. At the time, George dismissed it as an angry outburst, but later, that warning seemed far too specific. Other troubling incidents surfaced. Jenny noticed a stranger lingering near the family home, watching the younger children as they walked home from school. His gaze unsettled her, but she tried to brush away the unease. Around the same time, another man was seen on the property, stealing equipment from the Sodder yard. It was reported to the authorities, yet nothing came of it. The night of the fire, multiple witnesses recalled unusual activity. One neighbor claimed to have seen a man on the property just before the blaze. Another described what looked like fiery objects being thrown onto the roof of the Sodder home. Days later, Jenny found a strange rubber object in the grass, a type of incendiary device that could have easily started the fire. Then there were the obstacles that hindered the rescue. The family's ladder, normally kept beside the house, had disappeared. Both of George's trucks, in working condition the day before, mysteriously refused to start. The phone line had been cut. Piece by piece, these details pointed away from a tragic accident and towards something deliberate, a plan carried out with chilling precision. The Sodder family could not accept the official ruling, and instead of letting their grief fade into silence, they turned their loss into a relentless search. George and Jenny poured their energy and money into finding answers, refusing to believe their 5 children had been reduced to ash. Soon, they began to receive whispers and letters from strangers across the country claiming to have seen children who resembled the missing Sodders. Each message reignited their hope and pushed them further into a desperate investigation that spanned years. They printed thousands of flyers and traveled to surrounding towns chasing rumors. Billboards went up along highways, showing the children's faces in bold letters asking for help. These signs caught the attention of the media, and soon the case became a mystery known far beyond Fayetteville. People from different states began sending tips. One report claimed the children were seen with 2 women at a convent in St. Louis. Another person swore they spotted the children at a hotel in Florida. A woman even wrote that she saw the missing Sodder children watching a parade in New York, surrounded by adults who refused to let them speak. Each new lead felt like a lifeline, yet none of them ever brought the family closer to the truth. Investigators would check the reports, only to return with no evidence. Still, George and Jenny pressed on, even traveling themselves when officials refused to investigate thoroughly. Years later, the most chilling clue of all arrived unexpectedly. George received a plain envelope in the mail with no return address. Inside was a photograph of a young man who looked strikingly like Louis, one of the missing children, now fully grown. On the back was a cryptic note with strange handwriting. The picture was both a spark of hope and a cruel reminder that the answers remained hidden. As the years turned into decades, the Sodder mystery refused to fade. George and Jenny devoted the rest of their lives to searching for their 5 missing children, never once accepting the official claim that the fire had taken them. Their home was gone, but in its place they built a small memorial garden, a symbol of both their grief and their determination. The billboards with the children's faces remained on display for years, towering reminders to every passerby that a family was still waiting for answers. George traveled across the country whenever a promising lead appeared. Sometimes it was a phone call from a stranger, other times a letter from someone convinced they had seen one of the children. Each trip ended in disappointment, but he never stopped chasing the possibility that his children were alive. Jenny, equally haunted, wore black every day for the rest of her life as a symbol of mourning. Together, they carried the weight of unanswered questions until their deaths. After George and Jenny passed away, their surviving children took on the burden of keeping the search alive. They guarded the case as a family legacy, repeating the story so it would never be forgotten. Still, despite decades of effort, no concrete evidence ever surfaced. The missing ladder, the disabled trucks, the cut phone line, the strange incendiary object in the yard, all remained suspicious, but none provided proof. The photograph of the man who resembled Louis became the final unsolved piece of the puzzle, a haunting image that left more questions than answers. If it truly was Louis, then where were the others? If it was not, then who had sent it, and why? To this day, the disappearance of the Sodder children remains one of America's most chilling and enduring mysteries, a story frozen in time without resolution.